Good morning, Scott. How are you?
I'm doing excellent, Clarissa. How are you?
That's good. I'm doing really well. It's a beautiful day here in Miramichi today, and I know you're in Fredericton. It'll be another warm day down there as well.
Yes, it's middle of a heat wave right now, and definitely need to tell myself off every once in a while.
That's right. That's right. So, Scott, you and I are colleagues at NBCC. We're both in the same department. We both are involved in experiential learning. But tell our viewers kind of, who is Scott and what do you do at NBCC?
Oh dear. Okay. Well, I'm Scott Henwood. I am part of a small team called Applied Research and Innovation as part of a larger department with you as a colleague on the entrepreneurship end and some other small units that I might speak to in passing. Collectively, we're focused on experiential learning, innovation, applied research, and regional social and economic development, I guess. So my title is an Applied Research Development Officer. So it's project development that's focused on what we call as applied research. So what a lot of folks that I chat with don't realize about colleges is that we have a mandate to support our community and businesses, not just through education and workforce training, but also through hands-on support and assistance with solving business problems, helping businesses grow and thrive, because we want we want places for our graduates to go and work and support our local economy.
Mm-hmm.
So that's kind of where our small team would come into play. I guess I could say there's myself and one other, Joni Legier, who are project development officers. We have projects and financial administrator. We also, quite importantly, have full-time researchers on staff.
Mm-hmm.
We work with our faculty and our students and staff at the college to identify and address the needs of industry, of small, medium-sized enterprises, and also of our community associations, nonprofit groups, etc. So I mean, soup to nuts. So I don't know where.
That's right. That's right.
What direction I should go from.
No, and I was one of those people. I mean, I came to the college 6 years ago, and I was one of those people that didn't, entrepreneurship was new. I was kind of brought in to work in the field of entrepreneurship before the college and expand that learning experience. And I certainly didn't know much about applied research, at the college level. So I'm really learning lots. And now that entrepreneurship's in the same department, if they do go hand in hand and it makes sense. So what services do you have, so it's all well and good that we have an applied research, but, to get down to the nitty gritty, what services do you provide, to the people that you help? Or I guess maybe back up and say, who can you help?
Well, I like to think of it as we can help just about anybody. Usually it needs to be an organization of some sort. We might help the individuals that an organization serves indirectly, but typically an organization would have to be incorporated or have some formal existence in some way. But that's really the only qualification. Now, if I could maybe just take one step back, which might help listeners kind of understand what we do. When a lot of people hear the word research, they might think of university based research, what we sometimes call either academic research or basic research, which is knowledge for the sake of knowledge. But both universities and colleges do what we call applied research, which is taking that knowledge that we've developed and putting it to work in the community, putting it to work for businesses. So for something to be applied research, basically all we need is some kind of need or problem, someone who's interested in solving that problem. So let's say a business that needs a solution or an innovation. We need a partner. We don't do research unless we have a partner, or at least my group doesn't. And also, fourth, we need a deliverable, something that we can provide, that we can give back, whether that be a recommendation, a report, or prototype, or even a solution to that problem. So the services that we would offer kind of are in that context.
Okay.
what I would do personally, I mean, I start with a consultation. I like to meet, whether it's virtually or by phone, and preferably in person, uh, to get to know what the person or business's needs are, kind of where they're at, what they offer. I serve the entire province of New Brunswick, all 6 NBCC campuses, businesses of, all around New Brunswick.
Mm-hmm.
So I need to kind of know a little bit about a lot of things,
Mm-hmm.
but subject matter expertise in not so many of them is maybe a charitable way of putting that.
Right. Yeah.
So I do really like to get that first interaction, and from there, if we have the subject matter expertise to help that organization, that business, then I would take the available resources, and I can get into that, and see if we can't pull a project together. So again, I'm a project development officer, so I try to assemble a project that would help solve that business's problem, or rather address their need.
Okay. Yeah. So can you give me an example of, so basically, where you're taking, a business or an organization that may have a challenge, and you're connecting all the dots to put it together so that hopefully at the end the box is checked off that problem doesn't exist any longer, or they have a solution. Can you give us an example of, without naming, names, but kind of walk us through an example of a business that has come to NBCC looking for assistance and what we did for them?
Yeah, absolutely. So as I mentioned, we work with businesses that of all sizes. So I mean, on the kind of skewing towards a small business, or even a medium-sized enterprise, I was approached, or rather referred, by a third party, a business about. This would have started maybe 18 months ago, but I'm still working with this business today, and they were developing or wanted to develop a mobile application that used GIS, global imaging, global positioning systems, to pinpoint locations that would be of use to their particular clientele, to their target audience. So with the help of an external funding agency, in this case NRC IRAP, we were able to secure a modest amount of funding, somewhere around $5,000, to develop, first off, conduct a needs assessment, and then produce a prototype application that would provide that company a proof of concept, which they could then take along to investors to try to leverage into further R&D funding, or getting additional expertise into their company to refine that product and eventually bring it to market to commercialize. So as I mentioned, I'm still working with this partner today. So they're still around and growing here 18 months later. So that kind of speaks to the value, I guess, that comes with working with the colleges. We have a lot of repeat partners.
Right. And it's not sometimes it's a long-term thing. It's not just a very, kind of one and done. Sometimes one challenge might lead to another one, and they just keep building on it. Now, you mentioned that this was, a mobile app,
Mm-hmm.
Is it only, kind of mobile technology, or, innovation around technology that you can help with? Or, are you able, as applied research and innovation, able to help the small mom and pop bricks and mortar type stores? Because as we're seeing with, the challenges that we just went through with the pandemic, and stores, businesses will continue to go through, is a lot of them, had to pivot, and they had to, develop new processes. So is it just one particular industry that you can help, or, can any business with an issue come to applied research if they were looking for a solution?
Well, the way I look at it is we have nearly 90 programs at NBCC, and while we might have certain priority areas or certain areas that we have a longer track record, my job and my mission is to leverage the subject matter expertise across all program areas. So if there's a program area that's relevant to your business,
right,
and these are all available, publicly online, but also I'm happy to speak to them myself. It's my job to know them all. then yes, any of those industries. So mobile technology just happens to be probably our longest tenured. We have an industrial research chair who specializes in mobile and ubiquitous computing, he calls it. So mobile app development, Internet of Things, et cetera. But we do a lot of applied research in marketing, particularly at the program level. You mentioned your example of a mom and pop store trying to pivot. We actually had an example this past winter semester where one of our marketing classes was working with a small company in New Brunswick. And then the pandemic hit, and the class had to shift focus of their term project from their kind of typical market assessment and producing marketing materials to producing marketing materials that would be specific to that company's response to the pandemic.
Okay.
So that do a lot of course-based research in business and marketing, in building business cases, doing needs assessments, our IT programs as we've established, and our engineering programs as well. And I've built prototypes for companies. Our food and our value-added food programs, our culinary programs, hospitality and tourism. I could go on, but we certainly not limited to any one industry.
Okay. So what's the first step? So, there may be a small business, listening to this right now and saying, well, this is interesting. What's their first step if they think that they may have a challenge that requires a solution and they may want to connect with you?
Well, my phone lines are always open, I guess. Certainly email and phone would be a great first step.
So it's as simple as that. It's as simple as that, just picking up the phone and calling.
Oh yes, I mean we do have like an intake form if it's something where I kind of need things spelled out for me. If I'm not familiar enough with the field or with the industry, then we do have an intake form. I do prefer to begin with a conversation, and then from that point, there are a lot of variables. I mean, where you are in the academic year, is that right? Is that perfect course coming up where we could ask that faculty member to bring this real world experience into the classroom and have the faculty and students help out? Is this something where we have established research expertise or could easily acquire that expertise by freeing up a faculty member? So it could depend on the time of the year, could depend on the funding cycle, what funding opportunities are available. But I don't ever let any of that turn away, someone who needs assistance. So it's kind of my job as a development officer to do that stuff in the background and see
and try
what
to
are
move
the
it
options
and move it along.
And I try to never leave it with zero options. There's always a couple. Sometimes they might require waiting. We might not be able to do it like lickety split, but we more often than not we can pull some kind of a project together. But one way I like to think of it is like, we connect SMEs with SMEs. We connect our subject matter experts with small and medium-sized enterprises.
Right. Yeah. And you really are, as you're describing it, you're almost like you're the middleman, and you're bringing the small business owner, the funder, and then the subject matter experts, that are sometimes our instructors or our students, together. And then you're just making sure that, everything is going to run smoothly.
I try to know, or to have as strong contacts and strong relationships as I can within the community, businesses and nonprofits, with funding agencies, to have those established relationships. So, every project is so different and the questions are different every time. So the best way is to have that relationship with someone from a particular agency where I could pick up the phone or send that quick email and know that it'll get a response, so that we can get answers for our stakeholders. So, and my stakeholders are everybody, the faculty and students in the college, but also, I'm more outward facing in general. So our businesses and community members.
So, what it sounds to me, and I mean, I'm biased because I'm in the same department as you and in the same organization as you, but, why wouldn't, like, there's so much value here. What's the biggest piece of, if again, people are watching and they're saying, I don't know if I have the time, I don't know if I have, what's involved, but, what do you think is the, besides, the solution being the end result, what would you say to somebody who was kind of on the fence that and making that call? What would you say to them?
Well, I think there's really not nothing to lose except your time, which can be the most valuable
Hmm.
resource. I mean, just
Absolutely.
in speaking with me or my colleague Joni, or you know sending an email of your issue, uh, we do our best to get back to everybody. And
Hmm.
I don't, it's not my job to promise on the behalf of our researchers and faculty that we will always, have a solution. And I mentioned the timelines and variables as well, the academic calendar.
Hmm.
Our
Yeah.
primary objective, of course, is workforce development and training, but work integrated learning, experiential learning, everybody in the college is on board with this. So it tends to be a very easy sell for our faculty, but that oftentimes we need, you know, it to line up with the curriculum at that point of the year. So the biggest risk, I guess, in business, especially small business, you need something yesterday. Might not even matter what the size of your business is. So I do my best to be responsive and to get responses done,
Yeah.
as quick as possible.
Yeah. Yeah. And I find that too, with the Oasis program, I tell people their investment is their time. And sometimes that is tough. And when somebody wants help, they want it right away. So it's, if we've learned anything from going through this state of emergency, you have to kind of always be planning, ahead and looking to see. I know there's, people say live for today, but we almost have to look ahead and say, how can we be planning? So if
Yes,
this,
yeah, and
you
especially in the
know,
business world too. For
absolutely. And I think for now, like, if this ever does happen again, which, all the experts are telling us that it will, how do we make that plan going forward so that we're not kind of faced with it, again, and not going, we see gyms now moving to different booking systems and,
Mhm.
and they probably will never go back to the way it was. They'll always keep moving ahead. So, and the way that, estheticians are working and massage therapists are working. So, they're generating their own solutions. But, well, Scott,
Mhm.
I really want to thank you for taking the time today. I've learned a lot from you, as I always do, but I'm sure that our viewers will as well. And I'll also link the information or the page for our NBCC Advantage so that they can get the information on how to connect with your department. And
Great.
hopefully people will take advantage of even just a conversation with you, because I think it's important to
Yeah.
start from there.
Okay, you're too kind, Clarissa. This has been a great opportunity. I appreciate being invited to have this interview. And please do link to our department. And for those listening, if you want to jump on it, it's appliedresearch@nbcc.ca is an email address.
His email. Perfect. Awesome. Well, thanks so much, Scott.
All right. Thank you very much for
Thank
your
you.
time and the opportunity.
Thanks.